Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So a man sent his friend a cryptic Christmas card, and on the cover of this Christmas card, it said, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. The man looked at it and said, what is this? He tried to figure it out for a few weeks, couldn't make any sense of it. So he finally wrote his friend and said, what's up with this card? Didn't hear back from him until July, and he received his response in the form of a postcard, and all it said in it was, no L. No L? No L? There was no L in the alphabet, so Noel. The word Noel, Merriam-Webster tells us, has two meanings. It means a Christmas carol, and it also means, when it's capitalized, Christmas. So it's perfectly apropos for our message tonight and what we're looking at tonight, because this is our Christmas Carol series, where we're looking at Away in a Manger tonight as our main focus, and Christmas, Noel, Christmas, as Christmas is revealed in us as the birth of the Christ, the I Am, in us being revealed again. The word Noel comes to us from the French, and before even that can be traced back to the Latin word natalis, which can mean birthday as a noun and also can mean of or relating to birth as an adjective. So we're looking all about the birthday of the Christ, of Jesus, and also the Christ in us, how it relates to us on our spiritual path. So, besides the events leading up to Christmas for Jesus, we have some events leading up to Christmas for ourselves that we probably have on our minds now, perhaps. You know, there are only 12 more shopping days left until Christmas. I don't know. How are you guys doing? Are you ready? Not ready? No. The only thing that I've done at our house is I've removed the lawn flag that has the turkey and replaced it with the one with the Christmas wreath. That's the totality of my decorating. And so, good news for us, I didn't put out my nativity scene yet, so I brought it tonight as Exhibit A. And I don't expect you to see all the aspects of it, but you know generally what's in there, right? It's a common symbol for us. So I invite us to step away from all the things that we will be doing in the next 12 days to prepare, to kind of put them aside. I invite you now to recall the Christmas spirit that you felt as you were preparing for Christmas as a child. Bring back the memory of that experience when you really felt the joy, the awe, the wonder, the magic nature of Christmas. When I think back to those memories, the most magical was my living room in my own home, where there normally was a love seat by the front window. That had been moved over, and in the place of it is a giant, it was giant to me, real pine tree covered with treasures of ornaments from the years of our family, even preceding my birth, and beautiful colored lights, tinsel, and there's the smell, the aroma of that tree just made me know it was Christmas time. So on the big mirror that we have on the wall, we had the banner that said Merry Christmas, and then over here is the love seat where it's not normally, and put it at the right position to the television, where I could sit on the love seat with my warm blanket and a nice hot chocolate and watch all my favorite Christmas specials. Charlie Brown Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, just whatever ones were coming up. I made sure that I was there for that. And the one thing that we always had that we wanted to make sure that we had every year under the tree was the nativity set. And our nativity set looked a lot like this one, similar in size and the look of it, with one thing missing. This little guy was always missing from the nativity until Christmas Day, where I had the honor to place him in there in a awareness of his birth. My favorite Christmas memories, just sitting, looking at the tree, looking at the nativity, and just wondering at the magic and the mystery and the glory of it all. And so some of the things that we see in the nativity scene, it's actually, now that we look at the Christmas story in the Bible, and in my mind as a child, it all worked together. I mean, it was just all one story. I didn't know. It made sense. Songs talked about it, story I heard about it. When we look at the Bible, there are two accounts of the birth narrative, Matthew and Luke, that's it, and they're both different, but they're both together here. We've got wise men, we've got shepherds and sheep and cows, and away in the manger, one of the lines are, the cattle are lowing. Do you know what that means? It means they're mooing. I always wonder, I thought maybe they're laying low. They're mooing. Well, mooing wouldn't sound so poetic in a song, right? So that was just a little fun fact I thought I would share. So we have the Magi from the east, the angel who appeared so magnificently that night before the shepherds in the fields, and said in the Gospel of Luke, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you glad tidings of great joy for all people. For to you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord." So imagine such news that would be so great today, that would bring great joy to all people. What would be news that could transform the world? This story, this scene, ignites my hope. It opens my heart. Yet history has not been kind to this nativity story. Bible scholars have been intent to cast it aside as a myth. Many believe that Jesus of Nazareth was born in Nazareth, and that the early Gospels were just trying to link this birth to Bethlehem to fit a prophecy. In December of 2010, we were living in New York, and there was something that happened then called the Christmas billboard battle. Did any of you hear of it? You remember it? Yeah. The American Atheist had posted a billboard near the entrance of the Lincoln Tunnel, and it had a picture of the wise men and the star and the nativity scene, and it read, "You know it's a myth. This season celebrate reason." The Catholic League responded by buying a billboard at the other end of the tunnel, which had a nativity scene on it, and it said on it, "You know it's real. This season, celebrate Jesus." So you may be wondering, in the awareness of the mythology of this story and the conflation of the two stories together, right? How is this Christmas story real for you this year? After all, it has been said by Bible scholars that there are factual errors and inconsistencies in the gospel narratives of Jesus' birth. So why do we continue to celebrate something that we can tend to consider purely a myth? When asked about the nativity story, our Unity Bible scholar, Unity minister, one of my Bible teachers, E.J. Niles, told Unity magazine this: "Myths reveal the human spirit. They help us understand who we are. They have deeper meaning for us than historical truth." So this ancient story has a deeper meaning for us that can be evoked by this scene. It can help us understand who we really are. When the Gospels were written, ancient mythology was the main form of storytelling. They often told a story after the fact through using myths, though the story is spiritually accurate. As we know and practice in Unity, when we go beyond the literal meaning of something, of a story, of what's in the Bible, we find the greater spiritual truth within. When we look to the ultimate message of the Christmas story, it is the birth of Christ awareness opening in us now. Christmas is a great time to remember that Christ lives within you, within me, and this is the news that brings great joy to all people, doesn't it? That revelation of the divine within when we remember, which is why we keep coming together in spiritual community to do so. So it's a time to celebrate yourself, right? Because the divine is within you. So you get to celebrate that, the Christ in you. So like Jesus, there should be some gifts involved, don't you think? At least 3. At least 3 gifts. The baby Jesus received 3 gifts, and so I have 3 spiritual gifts for you tonight in connection to this nativity story. As I was considering this idea of celebrating yourself, I looked to Eric Butterworth, one of our great Unity authors, his book, Celebrate Yourself, and I discovered 3 spiritual gifts for us to receive and to give this season. And so the first spiritual gift is love. We see the love of parents for the child. We see the wise men bearing gifts. We remember it's a season of giving and receiving, one of the ways that we express love. You may notice the angel and the star of Bethlehem and see the light of peace that they bring. But what is the unseen presence that enfolds the scene that makes it so magical? Well, that is our awareness of God as the presence of love. That is the truth of this scene, the presence. The love of God which birthed us all, which is the very essence of our being. Eric Butterworth shares what I consider the magical ingredient of the holidays. He said, everyone can make a positive contribution to the peace of the whole world by following Jesus' injunction to love one another. Love being the one creative force of the universe. So how can we love one another in a new way this holiday season as we take in this nativity story? One of the great gifts that we can give to our family, our friends, our loved ones is to be centered in our hearts, to be a radiant presence of love. Did you know that your heart energy affects people up to 50 feet beyond you? So before you go into a holiday setting, no matter how joyous or potentially contentious you may anticipate it to be, what we can always do spiritually is to center into love, center into our heart space, to receive the gift of love and give the gift of love. And our positive energy can have a powerful impact on our experience, on our loved ones, as a great gift that we can give. You know, when you enter into a space that already has that feeling of love, like this space, where a lot of prayer energy has been going on for many, many years, you just sense it. And you can create that sacred space for your loved ones by centering into prayer, centering into your heart energy, by blessing each place setting, each chair, blessing the table, blessing the environment. That sense of blessing and love will be palpable to everyone who enters this space, and they will feel a shift and a more openness into their heart, and that's a great blessing. And you can be the angel in the nativity scene, sending out the blessing of love to your family by simply going into prayer, being in your heart space, and radiating that energy. When you recognize the Christ nature in each person, which is something that we can do in the holidays, that is another way to be the angel. When we look for the good, there is always good. That is seeing through the eyes of the divine, looking for the good in our loved ones, and essentially saying to these loved ones, I bring you glad tidings of great joy for all people, for I behold the Christ in you, being born anew this day. So the first spiritual gift being love, the second spiritual gift being innocence. That's one thing that I see in this scene is the potential, the innocence, the pure love present in Jesus that we experience as we behold the scene. And Christmas is a time of benevolence, of purity of heart, and a time to renew that sense of our own innocence. The warmth of the season can bring memories of our younger years when we approached life with awe and wonder. So what does this innocence of Christmas mean to us today? Well, innocence can mean making the choice for unity. You know, when family comes together, as sometimes it does, there can be old patterns, emerging situations can arise, which can lead us to focus on all kinds of things from the past, all stuff, right? They can cause us to be separate. They can cause us to fall into old arguments, old patterns of negativity, bringing up the past. But this year, instead of taking sides, instead of passing judgment, instead of arguing for what political party is right, we can follow Butterworth's suggestion and become a positive onlooker, like the shepherds who came. Think of them in the nativity scene. They heard of Jesus' birth, and they came, and they brought no gifts. They didn't. They brought their loving presence. And what I find interesting about that is that in the second chapter of Matthew, the wise men leave their they leave their material gifts, but there's no mention of Mary's response to the gifts that were of great material value, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Yet the shepherds in Luke, who came as positive onlookers, just to tell Mary what the angels had told them, to share the good news about Jesus, they didn't bring any material gifts. Scripture says they touched Mary's heart and gave her an angelic blessing just by sharing their joy. Just by sharing their joy. So what would it be like this Christmas to be a positive onlooker like the shepherds? To be there to celebrate your loved ones, no matter how they showed up. We can behold the Christ nature in our loved ones, be a positive onlooker, and remember that just like us, they too have the potential to awaken to this truth. And so you may be thinking that now is a good time to set things right with your family, considering that all the truth that you know, the spiritual teachings that you've studied in unity. And on this note, Butterworth says, don't delude yourself that the world needs your religion. The world needs unity, not theology. He said a better approach is to be a meta-missionary. Meta means beyond, becoming a missionary for seeing the truth beyond appearances. The shepherds could have said, oh, that's just a baby. How do we really know that he's a Messiah? I mean, he hasn't done anything to prove it yet, right? All they saw was the potential, the possibility. They saw beyond the physical appearance to what they knew in their hearts was the truth. So, is there anyone in your family that hasn't done anything to prove their Christ nature to you yet? I bet you can think of like at least one person. The shepherds were the meta-missionaries in this story. They were able to see beyond appearances. For us to do this means making the effort to see people rightly rather than to set them rightly. It's a spiritual lesson that we get to keep practicing again and again. Children do this so naturally, don't they? They just run up to, how do you love that person so much? They just see the good. They're always looking at it. They see the love. They see the good, and they call it out. And you see people responding differently to children than they would to you. It's like, wow, that person's really fun. I had no idea. I get to see that, having a little one, just how her presence just can light up many people. It's a beautiful thing to see how children can bring out our own childlike and innocent nature. It is always in us. We never lose it, no matter how old we get. Sometimes we forget. We need to be reminded. So you can become a positive onlooker, a meta missionary, and your influence will be more in what you are than in what you say. When you become like a child and once again can see the good in people beyond appearances, then perhaps we can once again experience the Christmas that we knew as our younger self with the innocent, childlike wonder. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Perhaps seeing the Christ in others is the way to become like little children, and we can give ourselves back the Christmas gift of innocence. So the third spiritual gift, love, innocence. The third gift is new beginnings. This is saturated with the possibility of new beginnings for us. We rejoice in the birth of Jesus because it represents the birth of our own inner divinity, the greatest of all new beginnings. When we see the infant Jesus in the manger, we can remember that in Jesus' teachings, he places the emphasis on you, on your unfoldment. Eric Butterworth said that the good news of the gospel is not that Jesus alone was divine, but that all persons are inherently divine. Nothing could be more marvelous than this truth. And it's not surprising that those who are literal-minded would find his message of our divinity to be unbelievable. In our Unity co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore's book, How to Let God Help You, she said, "The star, the angels singing, the shepherds, the wise men traveling from afar, all in homage to a babe born in a manger. Fairy tales? Not at all. We believe the whole account because we know that the Christ comes not by sense testimony. We know that he comes as a spiritual, invisible presence, and that the imaging power of the mind must necessarily build up figures by which to convey the idea of his coming within." It's a symbol for us to remember. The birth of the Christ consciousness in your life is just as glorious as this beautiful nativity scene. It's the truth that lives with us, and we can't help but celebrate it year after year through the Christmas story. So while you're birthing the Christ consciousness, we get to celebrate ourselves, the universe made in you, and there is what Eric Butterworth called the upward pull, the God spell, that we're always spiraling upward in consciousness into a greater and greater awareness of this Christ nature. So we remember that. We're coming into a greater realization of our oneness. And so as we celebrate ourselves and we celebrate the life of Jesus this season, I'd like to share this poem by John Shelby Spong, and it's called Christ's Power. Look at him. Look not at his divinity, but look rather at his freedom. Look not at the exaggerated tales of his power, but look rather at his infinite capacity to give himself away. Look not at the first century mythology that surrounds him, but look rather at his courage to be, his ability to live the contagious quality of his love. Stop your frantic search. Be still and know that this is God. This love, this freedom, this life, this being. And when you are accepted, accept yourself. When you are forgiven, forgive yourself. When you are loved, love yourself. Grasp that Christ power and dare to be yourself. So what is real about Christmas this season, the story, the myth that we know as the Christ narrative, it is real. Because it's relating to us the truth of our divine nature being born. We get the gift of remembering it again and again. So remember to bring your Christ presence to this Christmas season. Be the presence of love. See the innocence, the light, the possibility in each person. And remember that this is a time of new beginnings for you, of Christ being awakened and expressed and celebrated in you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.